It's hard to believe it's been over a year since Spider-Man No Way Home hit theaters. For a while, it looked like No Way Home wasn't even gonna be made, at least not by Marvel Studios. Despite Sony and Disney's battle, the new Spider-Man managed to dust the cobwebs off of theater seats around the world. Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home, Spider-Man No Way Home is directed by Jon Watts. Number 2. This makes the new Spider-Man trilogy the first trilogy in the Marvel Cinematic Universe to have the same director for all 3 films. Number 3. No Way Home is written by Chris McKenna and Eric Sommers. They're the same duo that wrote Far From Home, and they also wrote Homecoming alongside Jonathan Goldstein, John Francis Daley, Christopher Ford, and even Jon Watts himself. Number 4. As is Marvel tradition, Kevin Feige produced Spider-Man No Way Home, but he wasn't alone. Seeing how this movie was a collaboration with Sony, former Sony Pictures chairperson Amy Pascal was also brought on to produce. Number 5. Marvel and Sony had always planned the newest batch of Spider-Man movies to be a trilogy. Tom Holland dropped that bomb back in 2017 before Homecoming had even come out. Number 6. So, development for the third piece of the Spider-Man trilogy started in August 2019, alongside a 4th movie that Sony wanted to do. Number 7. However, within that same month, things started to look dire between Disney and Sony. Suddenly, Sony announced that Feige, and by extension Marvel Studios, were no longer part of the next Spider-Man movie. Number 8. At first, Sony claimed that Feige was out because he had too many other projects, and that Disney did not allow time for him to work on IP they do not own. Number 9. Sure enough, the real reason quickly showed itself: a disagreement about money. Well, before the news broke in August, Disney and Sony had been in negotiations for months. By August, things had finally broken down to the point that both companies abandoned the negotiation table. Number 10. Before then, Disney and Sony's arrangement was such: Disney got to use Spider-Man for 3 films: Captain America Civil War, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame. In exchange, Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios would make 2 Spider-Man movies for Sony to distribute. Simple, right? Number 11. Apparently, this original deal was so simple that the legal document outlining the agreement was only about 4 to 5 pages long. Number 12. While Disney already had bought merchandising rights for Spider-Man from Sony, this deal also included a bit about how Disney would have to pay yearly royalties to Sony. These royalties amounted to about $30 million a year, but that number was tied to the success of the upcoming Feige-produced movies. Basically, the more money the movies made, the less the royalty payments would end up being. Number 13. Of course, the details of this deal may have changed behind the scenes over the years, but one thing is irrefutable: these new Spider-Man movies made bank. Homecoming made about $880 million, and Far From Home managed to rack up over $1.1 billion in gross sales. Number 14. That made Spider-Man Far From Home Sony's highest grossing film ever released at the time. Number 15. Reportedly, Disney was already pulling in something like 5% of each Spider-Man movie's box office gross as per their existing deal with Sony. Number 16. With the 2 promised Spider-Man films finished and wildly successful, it was time for Disney and Sony to negotiate a new arrangement for the rights to Spider-Man. Initially, Sony wanted to sign Marvel Studios up for more films at the same rate as the original deal. Number 17. On the other hand, Disney had a different suggestion. Disney wanted to help finance the films and therefore have stake ownership. For example, Disney offered to fund 25% of the film in exchange for 25% of the earned cash. This number fluctuated between 25 and 30 early stages of writing the 3rd Spider-Man movie, so it seemed like Sony was forging on their own, determined to make a Spider-Man outside of the MCU. Number 19. While the writers were already on board, just about everything else was up in the air. Like Marvel, Jon Watts had only been signed on for 2 films, so even his involvement wasn't a guarantee. Number 20. Sony had hoped he'd jump on as director, but after things went south with Disney, there were rumors that Marvel was trying to lure Watts in to work with them instead. Number 21. By September, Sony Pictures CEO and chairman Tony Vinciquerra only had kind but vague words about Marvel. While he praised the studio and Feige for their great work thus far, all he could say was that for the moment, the door is closed when it came to working with them again. It looked like Spider-Man was officially out of the MCU and back in the SSU, the Sony Spider-Man universe. Number 22. In the court of public opinion, Disney and Spider fans were not pleased with this split. Just days after Sony's announcement, Disney held their D23 Expo and fans made their disdain known. Number 23. Even Spider-Man was moved to action. Tom Holland reached out to Disney CEO Bob Iger and Sony Pictures head Tom Rothman, hopeful that they would kiss and make up, and hey, it worked. Sony and Disney both went back to the negotiating table. Number 24. Bob Iger himself has credited Tom Holland and the fan outcry for the renegotiations. Number 25. So what was the final number that made everyone happy? 25-25. Disney was locked in to finance 25% of the third Spider-Man in exchange for 25% of its stake ownership. Also, Disney retained the merchandising rights for Spider-Man. Number 26. And so, Spider-Man was now back in for an additional MCU film, and the film even got a scheduled release of July 16th, 2021. Number 27. While Chris McKenna and Eric Summers had already been writing, all of the business news created some interruptions. When the dust finally settled, they truly jumped into the project around December of 2019. Number 28. Naturally, the script went through a number of different iterations. One early idea was to have longtime Spider-Man enemy Kraven the Hunter as the main villain. John Watts was so into the idea that he pitched it to Tom Holland. Number 29. Despite Watts' optimism, Kraven the Hunter was not meant to be. Among other reasons, one possible explanation for Kraven's omission was Sony's own plan for Kraven. Sony had already been in the early stages of their own Kraven movie, so introducing him with the MCU before Sony got their own swing at the character was likely seen as a bad idea. Number 30. With Kraven out of the picture, McKenna and Summers took inspiration from some surprising sources, such as It's a Wonderful Life. Like George Bailey, McKenna and Summers toyed with the idea of Peter making a wish now that his identity was exposed. That led to the inclusion of Doctor Strange and eventually the inclusion of a multiverse as a key plot point to make this wish of his come true. Number 31. And so, now that a multiverse was on the table, McKenna and Summers started writing the film with all of the old Spider-Man main characters involved. Keep in mind, this is before they had ever received any kind of green light about getting the original actors to return. Number 32. There was one actor they didn't have to worry about though. Even as Disney and Sony were playing financial tug-of-war, there was no doubt from either party about Tom Holland returning as Spider-Man. Number 33. In fact, the only one who's expressed doubt about a Tom Holland Spider-Man is Tom Holland himself. While he loves the role, Holland has said that if he's still rocking the Spidey suit when he's 30, he's done something wrong. As an alternative, he's also suggested shifting the Spider-Man story over to Miles Morales. Number 34. Holland isn't quite 30 yet, but for No Way Home, it was a challenge for him to return to that naive teenager headspace that Peter Parker occupies. At some points, it was even more of a strain for Tom Holland to raise his voice. Number 35. You could chalk that up to age, but he could have also just been exhausted. Tom Holland finished filming No Way Home just hot off the heels of wrapping the filming on Uncharted just 2 days earlier. Number 36. Tom Holland isn't alone though. Zendaya is back to play MJ in No Way Home. Number 37. No Way Home is actually the first time we get to hear her full name, Michelle Jones Watson. Before then, we didn't know her last name was actually hyphenated. This addition brings her one notch closer to the classic Mary Jane Watson of the comics. Number 38. Peter and MJ's chemistry is hardly a surprise. Zendaya and Tom Wilson are dating in real life. It's practically a long-held Spider-Man tradition. Andrew Garfield played and dated his co-star Emma Stone, who played Gwen Stacy, and Tobey Maguire dated his co-star Kirsten Dunst. Number 39. You can't have a multiverse plot without Doctor Strange. Sure enough, Benedict Cumberbatch is back as the MCU's #1 sorcerer. Number 40. Benedict Cumberbatch deliberately didn't read the full script during the making of No Way Home. He just wanted to be surprised by the finished movie once it was finally complete. Number 41. Peter's friend also gets his hand on some magic for No Way Home. Once again, he's played by Jacob Batalon. Number 42. To prepare to play Ned, Jacob Batalon actually lost about 102 pounds for the role. Of course, he also did it for personal health reasons. Number 43. Just like with Michelle Jones Watson, we finally learn Ned's full name in No Way Home. Ned Leeds. Fans had assumed this for a while, but this confirms that Ned is a reference to Ned Leeds from the Spider-Man comics. He's Peter Parker's work friend from the Daily Bugle. Number 44. At one point in the comics, Ned Leeds actually gets brainwashed into becoming the Hobgoblin. It's subtle, but No Way Home makes reference to this. When Tobey Maguire's Peter talks about his friend trying to kill him, see Harry Osborn from Spider-Man 3, Ned tells Holland Peter that he'd never do that. Number 45. Marissa Tomei returns for Spider-Man No Way Home as Aunt May. Tomei was particularly excited to show May's passion for community activism. Number 46. May works with the group known as FEAST, Food, Emergency, Air, Shelter, and Training. FEAST has actually been a part of the comics since 2008 and was also in the 2018 PS4 Spider-Man. Those stories usually depict FEAST as a front for Mr. Negative's schemes, but No Way Home's version seems to be above board. Number 47. Just before May dies, she says the iconic line, "With great power, there also must come great responsibility." This is the actual line from the original Spider-Man comic, as opposed to the now popularized, truncated version from the Sam Raimi movies. With great power comes great responsibility. Number 48. So Uncle Ben had his line in the original Spider-Man movie and Aunt May had hers in No Way Home, but who said it in the original comic? Well, neither. The line was never said by a character and was actually just part of the ending narration. Number 49. You may have picked up on that little flirty moment between May and Doc Ock. Turns out that's a direct reference to the comics too. In 1974's Amazing Spider-Man number 131, May and Otto Octavius were actually dating. They even came close to getting married. Number 50. And who can blame her? Alfred Molina reprises his role as Dr. Otto Octavius, and he looks just as good as he did in 2004. Number 51. To be fair, Molina and Dr. Octopus have been digitally de-aged for Spider-Man No Way Home. Molina was actually surprised when he was offered this role, seeing as how much older he'd gotten. Number 52. While Molina's face got a few digital enhancements, Doc Ock's tentacles received an entire CGI overhaul. In 2004's Spider-Man 2, the tentacles we see were a mixture of computer graphics and actual tangible puppets. For No Way Home though, the tentacles are completely digital. Number 53. Visual effects have come a long way since 2004, but Sony initially wanted to build off the original Doc Ock CG model from Spider-Man 2, especially for long and medium shots. Unfortunately, they found out that that model doesn't exist anymore, so the VFX team had no choice but to craft a new model from scratch. They also had to de-age Molina in more shots than they had anticipated. Number 54. On the bridge where Doc Ock first appears, there's a license plate that reads 63 ASM-3. This is a reference to 1963's Amazing Spider-Man number 3, the first comic that Doc Ock appeared in. Number 55. That's not the only vehicular Easter egg though. When Peter Parker is putting on the spider suit, you'll see that the cab behind him has the number 1228. This is a reference to December 28th, the day that Stan Lee was born in 1922. Number 56. So we've got Dr. Octopus, but Max Dillon, aka Electro, also crossed over through the multiverse. Just like in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, he's played by Jamie Foxx. Number 57. Jamie Foxx actually confirmed the news himself in a likely unsanctioned Instagram post. His post was swiftly deleted, so it seems like he jumped the gun on playing Electro again. Foxx was just too excited that he wasn't gonna be blue anymore. Number 58. As pumped up as Jamie Foxx was not to be blue, does Electro's color change even make sense? Well, there's actually an in-universe reason as to why. When he powers up, Electro mentions that the energy of this new universe is different. It's a brief explanation, but it's there. Number 59. As quick as that explanation is, there's an Electro reference that's even quicker. When Electro shows up for the final battle powered up, the sparks across his face make the classic star shape of the old school Electro costume from the comics. Number 60. There's another subtle reference to old school Electro. The clothes that Peter throws Electro are high visibility gear from a power station. It's a nod to Max Dillon's original occupation in the comics as a line worker before he got his powers. Number 61. So Alfred Molina's Doc Ock is iconic. Jamie Foxx's Electro is less iconic, but great all the same. but nothing says iconic like bringing Willem Dafoe back to play longtime Spider-Man villain the Green Goblin. Number 62. Willem Dafoe was excited to put the green suit back on, but only under one condition. He insisted on doing as many of his own stunts as was possible. Number 63. Just like Molina, Willem Dafoe was digitally de-aged to play Norman Osborn in No Way Home. Number 64. Aside from the de-aging, Dafoe used a practical effect for the Green Goblin too. When he was in Norman Osborn mode, he actually wore prosthetic teeth. Then, once the Green Goblin took over, the prosthetic came off and Dafoe's actual teeth were filmed. This was how they filmed Dafoe's scenes in the original 2002 Spider-Man movie too. Number 65. Speaking of, there's a not-so-subtle callback to the 2002 Spider-Man. I'm sure you've heard Norman Osborn's now infinitely memed line, "You know, I'm something of a scientist myself." Well, now you get to hear it again in No Way Home. Number 66. Doc Ock also gets a direct callback to his original lines. He says, "The power of the sun," before Peter too jumps in to finish the line with, "in the palm of your hand," a reference to Doc Ock's final line in Spider-Man 2 before things take a turn for the worse. Number 67. If you can believe it, there are even more returning villains. Thomas Hayden Church returns as the Sandman, aka Flint Marko. Number 68. Also, Rhys Ifans reprises his role as the Lizard, Dr. Curtis Connors. Number 69. While both actors are in No Way Home as their respective characters, they only appear in voiceover roles. On screen, both of their characters are entirely computer generated. Number 70. John Watts actually did some motion capture references for the Sandman. Number 71. Towards the end of the movie, Sandman and Lizard appear in their human forms. However, that's just reused old footage of their characters from Spider-Man 3 and The Amazing Spider-Man. Number 72. Even the Netflix shows are getting in on the MCU. Charlie Cox is in No Way Home as Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil. Number 73. While this is Daredevil's MCU debut, this is the second MCU crossover with Marvel's Netflix shows. The first was Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin appearing in Hawkeye. Number 74. Once again, Jon Favreau plays Happy Hogan, but he also played Foggy Nelson alongside Ben Affleck in 2003's Daredevil movie. There's actually a cut line where Happy is sitting alongside Daredevil and says that he's a little foggy on the details. It's a subtle nod to Favreau's Daredevil history that we never got to see for ourselves. Number 75. Tom Hardy shows up in the mid-credit sequence as Venom. Venom has actually been hanging around the MCU since the post-credit sequence of Venom: Let There Be Carnage. Number 76. If you look closely, you can see the name McFarlane spray-painted on a subway platform. This is a reference to Todd McFarlane, the famous comic artist who created Venom. Number 77. Like with the cars, Marvel loves their graffiti Easter eggs. You'll see the name Ditko sprayed on the side of a Feast truck. You'll also find Ditko tagged on the building behind Peter and MJ as they hang out on the roof. They're subtle shoutouts to Steve Ditko, the co-creator of Spider-Man alongside Stan Lee. Number 78. That said, there's nothing subtle about the return of Tobey Maguire. He's back as Spider-Man, aka the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, aka Peter 2. Number 79. At 45 years old at the time of filming No Way Home, Tobey Maguire is the oldest on-screen Spider-Man. Number 80. McKenna and Summers took notes from Maguire on how to portray his version of Spider-Man. Maguire wanted to keep expositional details about his Spider-Man to an absolute minimum. Let the audience figure things out for themselves about his life after Spider-Man 3. Number 81. Tobey Maguire alone is impressive, but Andrew Garfield also returns as his version of Spider-Man, aka The Amazing Spider-Man, aka Peter 3. Number 82. Like Maguire, Andrew Garfield had a lot of input on his Spider-Man, specifically how dark his life had become after the death of Gwen Stacy at the end of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Number 83. Remember the climactic scene where Garfield's Spider-Man saves MJ? That was actually John Watts' idea. They wanted to give him a kind of redemption after failing to save Gwen in his own universe. Number 84. Maguire and Garfield were approached and signed on to Spider-Man No Way Home before they had even read the script. Number 85. It's no secret now, but Marvel went to extreme lengths to keep this multiverse character out of sight. Willem Dafoe would regularly wear a cloak on set, just in case anybody happened to see him. Number 86. Also, at one point, Andrew Garfield and Charlie Cox had lunch facing a wall, just so that nobody would see their faces and recognize them. Number 87. Despite the secrecy, one clip leaked to the public. A few months before No Way Home's release, the world got to see Andrew Garfield in full Spider-Man gear, minus the mask. There's no audio, but you can read his lips. Do you ever get web block? Number 88. Filming for No Way Home started in Queens, New York in mid-October 2020. The crew was there just to get on-location establishing shots. They filmed in the Queens neighborhoods of Astoria, Long Island City, and Sunnyside. Number 89. In the movie, MJ works at a spot called Peter Pan Donut and Pastry Shop. Turns out that's a real place in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. Film crews shot there, then recreated the location in Atlanta for principal filming. Number 90. Much of Spider-Man No Way Home was filmed under the working title Serenity Now, a reference to the classic Seinfeld bit. Number 91. Once filming wrapped in New York, principal filming started on October 25th, 2020 in Atlanta at Trilith Studios. Number 92. As I'm sure you expected, there were lots of COVID protocols on set. For masking, Holland described a system of lights that they had to follow. A blue light meant that masks could come off for filming, a yellow light meant that masks had to go back on so the crew could come in and do what they needed to do safely. Number 93. In the spirit of safety, Marvel also used new VFX tech that allowed actors to be scanned. From there, post-production could digitally add details like makeup and costumes to avoid exposure. Number 94. COVID also forced the No Way Home team to switch cinematographers. Seamus McGarvey was the original cinematographer, but he had to leave after getting COVID and due to scheduling conflicts. He was replaced by Mauro Fiore. Number 95. COVID also obviously pushed the release date back from the originally planned July 16th, 2021. First, it was pushed back to November 5th, 2021, and then eventually the final date was set at December 17th, 2021. Number 96. Trouble was, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness was originally slated for 11/5, or November 5th. So when No Way Home got pushed back, the new Doctor Strange got pushed right along with it. Number 97. Because No Way Home was originally supposed to come out after Doctor Strange, Spider-Man needed some rewrites for continuity purposes. For one, the original script saw a Strange that was already familiar with the dangers of the multiverse. Of course, that had to get rewritten because, Multiverse of Madness wouldn't have happened yet. Number 98. Multiverse of Madness also needed some rewrites. Because Benedict Cumberbatch started filming for it in London as quickly as November 2020, the film needed some reshoots as well. Number 99. As for Spider-Man No Way Home, filming finally wrapped in March of 2021. Number 100. The rest of the US didn't get to see No Way Home until December 17th, but the movie held its world premiere on December 13th in Los Angeles at the Fox Village Theater. Number 101. So once the film was finally out for all to see, was all the Sony v Disney fighting worth it? Well, yes. Spider-Man No Way Home grossed over $1.9 billion. Number 102. That makes it the highest grossing film of 2021, the highest grossing Spider-Man film, and the highest grossing film that Sony has ever released. Number 103. For the record, No Way Home had a budget of about $200 million, so this movie made one hell of a profit. Number 104. No Way Home was breaking records even before it was out. The teaser trailer for No Way Home climbed to be the most watched trailer for any movie within 24 hours of release. It clocked in at 355 million views, beating out Avengers Endgame's record of 289 million. Number 105. To celebrate 60 years of Spider-Man comics and 20 years of Spider-Man movies, Sony and Marvel released an extended cut in fall of 2022, the more fun stuff version. Number 106. This version included a number of cut scenes, including one where Spider-Man catches a thief. The thief is actually played by Tom Holland's younger brother, Harry. Number 107. So what's next for Spidey? Well, Sony and Marvel have a fourth Spider-Man movie in the works. While Tom Holland's contract has officially ended, he and everyone at Sony are looking forward to him coming back. Let's hope he gets there before he hits 30. I'm looking forward to the next Spider-Man, and you can look forward to the next 107 Facts video if you subscribe to Channel Frederator. Never too old to do that. Thanks for watching.